So last night I watched the first episode of HBO's new drama, The Last of Us, based on the game. And I am pleasantly surprised. In fact, I'm not surprised. That's not true at all. I'm not shocked, actually, to say that it was fantastic. I mean, it really, really was. I wanted to kind of dive into why, though. If you know my background, since I was a tiny kid in the 80s, I've been obsessed with video games. Now, you guys know me from music stuff, but in truth, it was video games that really brought me into the whole world of reviewing. I worked for video games magazines from like 2005, I think it was, and then went freelance about 8 years later and only stopped writing about games in the last couple of years since I've been focusing on this. But every single adaptation of a game has been pretty awful. And as we moved from films being made about games, remember Max Payne with Mark Wahlberg? Literally one of the worst things of all time. Ever since we moved from films about games into TV shows about games, I had a little bit more hope. And then the Halo show came out. Yeah. So understandably, there was some precaution around The Last of Us, but with the people involved, with the writer of Chernobyl, which I haven't seen, but my wife says is fantastic, a guy called Craig Mazin, co-writing this with Neil Druckmann, who wrote the games. I knew that we were already in a good place. HBO is not going to do a major drama without at least having some standard. Think about the recent ones, Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Succession. People rave about White Lotus as well. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey as the main characters as well. Everything was in place, and I know from playing the games, replaying The Last of Us recently, well, that's not true. I'm replaying about 2 hours of the remake that just came out on PS5, and of course part 2 as well. I knew that the basis was there for something special, but with this opening episode, it's like feature length, an hour 20 minutes long, they really nailed everything that makes the game so special and so harrowing, but also expanded upon it. Saying I loved it slightly strange because it's a very upsetting episode. Now, I think I've cried to the opening of The Last of Us 4 times now. Once on PS3, once on PS4 in a remake, once on PS5 in a re-remake, and now in a TV show. And the opening scene, after a little bit of a broadening out of the universe of the 2003 Austin, Texas, it basically goes shot for shot for the game, right? Of the opening of the game down to everything going crazy and then getting in the car and it being shot from like the back seat. Almost exactly the same, and then the harrowing stuff. There will be spoilers in this chat about the first episode, but nothing beyond. I know so many of us have played the game and kind of know where we think the TV show is going to go, assuming it goes down the same paths. But there will be spoilers for this first episode, so if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. But yeah, obviously with Joel's daughter being shot and dying in his arms at the beginning, it is one of the most dramatically intense scenes in video games history, if not the most. Apart from probably some others in those games. And the TV show did it exactly the same, but did it justice as well. And then we moved into the present day in Boston, slightly confusing with it being 20 years on, but Pedro Pascal looks about 8 years older, but we won't care about that. And a bit of an expansion of the universe. Joel's like dealing drugs, and the time spent in the kind of quarantine zone was longer than anything in the first game, but ultimately, again, kind of goes shot for shot towards the later parts of the episode where we meet Ellie and then we find out exactly what's going to happen and what needs to happen with Tess as well. Plus points then. There are so many. Incredibly lavish design, set design, production design. You don't get an HBO series of this caliber with this budget behind it without incredible performances. That's just a must these days on these programs. In fact, probably always has been. But yeah, Pedro Pascal, obviously incredible. Bella Ramsey doing a great job with limited lines. She isn't in it that much actually for the first episode, but I thought she actually captured the essence of Ellie despite not really looking anything like her, which is interesting. Almost doing a voice alike. Both of them actually doing a voice alike for Joel and Ellie. Really nailed it. And then some of the more muted performances from the rest of the cast really fitting in. I thought Tess was fantastic, almost exactly like she is in the game, but even with a little bit more steel and depth there straight away. Obviously, very early doors. The world building, instantly fantastic, and credit must go as well to Neil Druckmann and the writers of the game for building this world. I knew this world was dense enough, despite being very familiar in zombie post-apocalyptic fiction, but I knew the world building was so good from the games that it would translate. And I think it's a testament as well to the creators of the games that there is so much shot for shot and word for word from the game in a TV show. You don't get that in other games, and when it's done in other films and TV shows, and when it is done in other films and TV shows, it always comes off as trite. But not only that, the actual sort of production set design really is shot for shot. Like the colors that they use for the bricks, the colors, the sort of lighting choices and the filter choices that they make are super familiar, but they don't fall into the trap of doing anything gamey. There was a couple of shots where it tracked slightly behind Joel, which I took more as a gentle nod towards the gaming audience, of which is going to be vast. You know, those games have sold millions and millions of copies. They're hugely popular games, and of course the core audience for this is going to be people that have played the games. There's also some quite cool little nods. There's a bit where they climb a ladder. If you remember the beginning of The Last of Us, there was a lot of bollocks with ladders. In fact, the first time I played that game, I was like, oh my god, have they fucked this up within the first couple of hours? And I don't think I'm alone in that, but yeah, obviously it ends up not being much of a problem as you get further in the game. There's a bit right at the end of the episode where they cut through like a chain link fence, and they kind of move through it exactly the same way as those sections in games where they have to, like, the game's loading and you have to like crawl through a bit of rock. Would you ever crawl through a bit of rock like this in real life? Let alone 40 times in one game? Yes, I am talking to you, Kratos, God of War Ragnarok, what the fuck? Yeah, I knew it was going to be good, but I was still blown away by how immaculately well done it is. And what's fascinating is I know where the game goes, and obviously part 2 as well, but with the expansion that we've already seen of the universe and a slight tweak in how the infected actually infect others, there seems to be something to do less with spores and more with the things that come out of their mouths. I think we're obviously going to get that explained more as the series goes on. We let game logic go a lot more than we do let film and TV logic go. So, I mean, realistically, there'd be spores everywhere the whole time. So, I think that would cause plot holes straight away in a TV show. We're allowed it in games because it allows sections to have spores and sections that don't for gameplay reasons. They don't have to adhere to the same rules. I'm fascinated to see where it goes. Is it just going to be a single season? I assume not, when you're putting that much budget and marketing and production behind it. Overall, though, did I ever think that we'd be in a situation where a game adaptation could be what we're seeing right now? No. Even the good ones, and I say good in inverted commas, even the better game adaptations from the past, like I didn't mind the last Tomb Raider film, I thought it was okay. They're not a patch on this, but then again, story-wise and world-building-wise, those games, very few games are up there with The Last of Us. So I think we're in for a hell of a ride, to be honest, and I knew we were in a good place when the show opened with the exact same music from Gustavo Santaolalla. You don't get a better soundtrack than that, so don't fix what isn't broken. But we shall see. Let me know if you want more TV stuff, more film stuff down in the comments. Like I say, 2023 is about exploring new avenues with the channel and my content. The Last of Us, man. I just tweeted that. I'll end it with my tweet. The Last of Us.